Hello. Wanted to try making a video about Haaland and why I've decided to not bring him into my team, and the reasoning behind that. So it's I don't know. It's a bit controversial, I guess. Haaland's had a good start to the season, obviously, and game week 3 was quite scary as a non-Haaland owner. Saturday night was a bit brutal. Like, I thought I'd bodged it. Like, my rank had gone down to about 4 mil. His second hat trick. I was thinking, yeah, this might be season over. I may have made a mistake here, and it was a weird one because I thought it was one of the fairly easy decision for me to not have Haaland at the start of the season. He was just 15 mil. His value for money was just so low compared with all the other picks you can get. So it was just like, well, surely you can do better by spreading the funds around. But I was always a bit wary because I thought, it's Haaland, isn't it? You know, what he could still do damage. You never know what he could do. And then he did double hat tricks, and you're thinking, oh no, I've bodged it now. Thankfully, Salah turned it around. That was like, I went from like being on the verge of like season over to being like back in the game. It's good fun. So this season's been a bit wild at the moment. There's probably going to be a lot of these swings throughout the season. But Haaland, in the midst of all that though, before Salah scored, I was thinking about Haaland and whether I'd made a mistake, and I came to the conclusion that I still hadn't. I'm still going to stick with it, and I want to kind of talk about why I think you're better off without Haaland because he's too expensive. And it's basically the price, 15 mil. For 15 mil to be worth it, I think he needs to be averaging about 9 or 10 points for it to be kind of even par, even like not even like good. He needs to be going over that for it to be a decent pick compared with some of the other players who you can get. 9 or 10 is like your baseline kind of. That's where he needs to get, which is basically 3 goals every 2 games, 9 or 10 points. If he scores 1 goal, me as a non-Haaland owner, that's good. I'm happy with that. That's underperformance for me. And if you're a Haaland owner, he needs to get more than 1 goal a game to be worth it, and probably about 3 every 2 games. I think. Now, arguably other people might disagree, but I want to go into the numbers in a minute. But that's where I think you've got to do, where he's got to get to. How to explain this? Every player has a predicted points per 90 rate. They all have a points per 90 rate. Here they all are at the moment. So far, this is just my model based on various settings that I've got at the moment. But at the moment, Salah's on top, 9.1. Haaland, 8.9. This is a little bit of past season data, a little bit of this season data. Palmer, 7.7. Duran's up there, but I haven't got a minutes filter, blah, blah, blah. Every player's got like a minutes per 90 rate that they're expected to get. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points per game average. But then everybody's also got a price. And your goal in FPL is to spend 100 mil and fill your team up. And so if you do the points divided by price, you get a value metric, right? You get a value metric. And this is it gets something like this. This is the metric here. And so Salah's on 0.71 at the moment. So this is I'm looking at a 4 to 6, 4, 5, 6. That's a 3 game range. So it's about like what is he? 9 points a game divided by 12.5, 0.72 is about, it's around about that. So he's over 0.7, which is for me that's a good value. Anything from 0.6 to 0.7 is just par. That's fine. Anything below 0.6, in my mind, I usually think you're getting into bad value now. And anything above 0.7 and up is good value. That's just a rough metric I always use. Haaland's on 0.54. At the start of the season, he was 0.49, I think. Obviously, he's doing well. This is a little bit of this season's data getting into it. So he's 0.54. Still not very good value for money, though. Cole Palmer, 0.76, pretty good value. Saka, 0.63 is basically par at the moment. I wouldn't take these numbers to the bank too much at the moment because the data is all a bit early part of the season, bits of last season's data, bits of this season's data. But yeah, some of these players, Watkins 0.68 par, and Bomo 0.82, Eze, where's Eze? He was here somewhere, 0.89. So some of them suggest that they're very good players, good value for money. Trent's up there, 0.76. So, okay, so they've all got different values for money. Now, if you've got 100 million, if you've got 200 million teams, the team that has the highest cumulative value for money is going to be the team that scores has more predicted points than the other. You want to maximise your value for money. Now, obviously, it's not quite simple that if they're both 100 mil teams, because if you just pick all of the value picks, you're going to end up with 30 million left in the bank and no points, you know. But if you can max out your team to 100 mil, and you've got two teams 100 mil, but one team has better value picks, a higher score than the other, then the team with the higher score is going to get more points. I'm so bad at explaining things, but I'm hoping this is like you explain it, because you've got 100 mil in the equation. It's points divided by price equals the value. Well, if the price is the same, 100 mil, then whichever is the highest value means you're going to have the higher points. I can see it in my brain, but I don't know. I'm not very good at explaining it. So yeah, so basically you want to. That's my logic. So when I see like a 0.4 Haaland for 15 mil, there's not that good value for money. So I'm thinking, well, I want to cram in more of these 0.7s and 0.8s and stuff. I want to get some more of these value players in if I can, because 0.5 is not that good. So that's one of the things I'm thinking with Haaland. And basically, if he how can I explain this? I mean, 7.7 points. So in 22-23, he was averaging about 7.77 points. I think it was actually more than that. I've got different ways of chopping it up. I think it was a bit more than that, but I think it was like 8.2. I think it depends on which way you cut it. But even if it was 8.2 points per game, for 15 million, that puts him at 0.55 value. So that's not that great. That's not that great. Last season, he was averaging about 7.2 points a game. For 15 million, that puts his value at 0.48. So that's really low value, right? He needs to be averaging about, if he was averaging 10 points a game, which is kind of unheard of, I think, or at least unheard of for me, over a course of a whole season, that would still only put him up to 0.67. And you think of all these players that are up in value of 0.7s and 0.8s and stuff. 0.67 is like par. And 10 points a game is like 3 goals every 2 games. If you think he gets 1 goal in 1 game, that's like 6 or 7 points. And then 2 goals in the next game, that's a 4 and a 4 and a 2, that's 10. Plus 3 bonus, 13. 13 plus 7 is about 20. So that's 20 divided by 2 is 10. That's about 10 points a game. That gets him to like 0.67 value for 15. And that's just 15. He's actually up to 15.2. So it's even as he gets higher, his value goes down even more. So he's kind of that would be par. So for Haaland to be worth it, he needs to be scoring 3 goals every 2 games, kind of something like that. 1 goal isn't enough. So there's that. So already I'm thinking, and then on top of that, so if he repeats his 22-23 season or 23-24 season, he's going to be very bad value for money. So he has to kind of up it by a massive amount. And 3 goals every 2 games, if you think he doesn't play every game, but he plays like, I don't know, 33 of the 38 games, if he does 3 goals every 2 games, that's about 50 goals season. He'd have to have a 50 goal season this season, something like that. And in 22-23, he broke the record with 36 goals. And the record before was about 30 goals, was it? Something like that. So we're talking an astronomical achievement he's expected to get to be worth 15 million, 50 goals a season. Now, he could do it. He is kind of crazy, a bit freakish, but I don't. It's about, do you bet that's going to happen? I don't think so. Yeah, so he needs to score a lot of goals. And then also, if you compare him to people like Messi and Ronaldo, like at their best, Messi, they were all, and Mbappe, they're all kind of like at the best, they average about 1.5 goals and assists. That's goals and assists that are supposed to be. That's the XGI. Their XGI is about 1.1ish, something like that. And Haaland's kind of similar. So, Messi, if you go through all his data, he's had a few seasons where he gets up to 1.8 and 1.9s here, but mostly on average he's about 1.4, 1.5ish. That's actual goals and assists. So that's like, 3 returns every 2 games. Same with Ronaldo. He's had a couple of seasons where he gets up to 1.8, 1.9, but generally he's kind of 1.5s at his best. At his best, if you don't take his average, he's had a few dodgy seasons. Same with Mbappe. It's all about that 1.5 region, an XGI 1.1ish, because they're all good finishers, so they over-egg their XGI, overperform. And Haaland's kind of similar. I mean, his average is 1.29, 1.3ish. He could do some 1.4s, 1.1s. It's all about the same kind of ballpark. Haaland maybe needs to up his game a bit more to get more like Messi and Ronaldo, because he's just goal scoring, isn't he? He maybe isn't all round like they are. But that's what he's competing against. So that's what he's got to do. He's got to get up to that kind of range. And I think it's unlikely. And even if he gets to that range, that's just par again. That's just like, I wouldn't even lose out. Even if he gets to that range, I wouldn't even lose out by going for other players. He has to do more than that. So that's what I'm thinking on the whole. But then there's another little thought, though, that I was thinking, because there's a chap on Twitter, Jack from FPL Hub, Jack Redditor, and he was kind of pointing out this point that that's over the course of a season, you have an average. But in that average, you've got hot streaks and cold streaks that make up that average. And if you can actually predict the hot streaks and then jump off on the cold streaks, then it's a different equation. So you could look at it as a kind of, with Haaland, you could say, well, maybe I'll just jump on the hot streaks and then jump off on the cold streaks. And that's possible. So I went back through, if you go back through 22-23 season, which is what his better season, these are all his points. This is all the game weeks, each game week. And this is like the 6 game week rolling average. And if you'd have jumped on Haaland for these first 6 game weeks here, he would have averaged 11.1 points per game, and his value would have been 0.74. So that's probably pretty good. Now that's worth his money. This is for 15 million. This is if he was 15 million. So if he does that again, if he does something, repeats that, then 0.7 is actually pretty good value. If you jumped on there, 0.67, not that great. But then if you jumped on here or here, 0.87 value. So you get a little period where if you had jumped on him here, he probably would have been good value for money for 15 mil. So that's true. But then you've got this massive period through the whole of the rest of the season where he's bad value for money. Even though he's still getting the odd hat-trick, the odd brace here and there, a couple of goals, he still represents on the whole fairly bad value for money for 15 million if he repeats what he did in this season. And then at the end, he had a little period where he went up a bit better. He had a 12 and a 12 and a 14 back-to-back. I think he missed a game in the middle there. But anyway, but that again just puts him at a kind of par level. So it's risky. So he's got to... This is if he repeats his first season. So you've got to kind of... You might... If you want to jump on Haaland and try and predict when he's going to do one of these runs of like getting loads of hat tricks and braces and getting loads of points, if you want to predict it, you might like so people who have done it from the start of the season, they smashed it. If that was your goal, he was value for money. You got 2 hat tricks out of him. He's gone well over 9 points a game, so you've definitely got your value for money from him. But that's in the past now, and as a Salah owner, I've gotten jammy as well, you could say, because he's matched him, so it's not been, the damage hasn't been too bad. But do you think he's going to continue is the question. And he could do, he feels like it, but then his fixtures are getting a bit tougher. He's got Brentford, then Arsenal, is it Newcastle, something like that. Could do, but then so the question is, do you want to take that risk and try and predict it? And that just seems too risky for me, I think. I guess I just don't want to risk it because at best, I mean, I suppose you could get lucky with it. That's the gamble. But most of the time, on average, over the course of the whole season, it's unlikely at the end of the season that he's going to be worth it as a whole. So really, this game you're playing with Haaland is hopping on and hopping off, hoping you're going to catch a few phases where he's over 9 points or 10 points a game. And it's a bit of a risky game. And this is just that season. Last season, there was barely even a moment where it would have been worth it at all. Like there was only a couple of moments where he got over 0.6. Most of it was all below that. If you wanted to jump on 4 game week windows, just like a little 4 game week window, you could maybe find a few spots. But even then, that's the only one over 0.7 at the end of the season where did he get 4 goals against Wolves? Is Yeah, 4 goals against Wolves, I think, something like that. So yeah, it's very risky. And if you want to kind of play the game, if you want to play the game of hopping on and hopping off on one game week, it's very hard to predict. There's plenty of games here against Wolves. He got a 2-pointer, Bournemouth 1-pointer. Some of these games where you'd think he'd get a lot of points, he just doesn't get that many. Fulham 2, West Ham 2. So yeah, that's the game. I guess you're trying to gamble on when to jump on Haaland, when to jump off, and I just think on the whole, this is the worst damage he'll probably do to you. Get up to like 0.7s, 0.8s, and that's just that's Mbomo, Eze's. There's lots of other players that are in 0.7 territory anyway. So that's what I'm thinking with Haaland. I just think he needs to return a huge amount to be worth the money. Yeah. Was there more I wanted to say about that? I'm not certain. It still feels kind of nervous and nervy not having him. And some people talk about the captaincy as well, and I think that might be a little blind spot in my mind of like, because I don't really think about captaincy that much, other than just so long as I've got one of like Salah or Haaland, maybe Palmer, but really it's just as long as I've got one of Salah or Haaland to captain, I don't really think about captaincy. But there may be some people who are cleverer than me, because technically you're doubling your points. I don't know how it works. I need to think about the captaincy, but I generally don't think about the captaincy that much. But yeah, that's why I'm not going for Haaland. Yep, I think that's all I wanted to say. Yep, my thoughts have run out. So that is it. Thanks for listening. See you later. Bye bye.